Sorry, this is the third time I've made this video because the first two I didn't like and took too long. It's all right. Take number 3. Hello and welcome is me, the OG GM. And Rasputin says I don't do enough videos with GM tips. So today we are talking about the tabletop role-playing game Mount Rushmore. The bucket list, the things that we all have asked ourselves at least once. And the very first one we want to address when we're doing the tabletop role-playing game Mount Rushmore is, should I open my own game store? And the answer is no. No, you should not. Unless. Now, far too often people open their own game store because they think they're going to just have a place where they can play with D&D with their friends, order whatever games they want, and make a lot of money. And that is farthest from the truth. You're probably never going to have time to actually play D&D with your friends. The chances of you being able to use your store as a way to get your hands on more obscure role-playing games like Fringeworthy are limited or none. And if you think you're going to get rich running a game store, no. You will be lucky to break even. So if you're thinking about opening your own game store or working at a game store because you think, oh, well, if I work at a game store, I'm just going to be able to play with my friends all day. No. Now, you have to understand, if you're going to open a game store, if you're even thinking about opening a game store, at this point in time, the way the world is now, ask yourself, do you have the time? Do you have the mental and emotional and physical fortitude to do this? And do you have the financial wherewithal to support yourself? Because, my friends, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to see breaking even for at least a year, if not longer. You're going to be spending more than you're making. And if you think you're going to make a profit, that's going to be far, far, far down the road once you've established enough of a repeat customer base, or you're going to have to offer something that none of the other places are offering. Because right now, your competition as a friendly local game store opener is immense. Let's just the bare minimum. The two big sellers, Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? Magic the Gathering, I can get anywhere. So if your only thing is, I have the latest Magic the Gathering packs, so what? Target has them. Walmart has them. Fuck, I can get Pokemon and Magic cards at gas stations. Barnes & Noble has them. I can order them online. If there's a single I want, I can order it online. Or I can go to a specialty store that just does singles and Magic cards and has been established for a long point of time. What are you offering me that a store that's, my other store has not been doing? Because if I'm looking for singles, well, there's probably already a store that's been doing that for a long period of time. Because let's face it, it's 2002 and Magic's been around for, 100,000 years. So if there's singles are a thing that the store is doing, there's probably our store doing it. And there's hundreds of online places where you can get singles, So if Magic the Gathering, plus it's in regards to the way Hasbro thinks in regards to Magic and D&D, it's Amazon first. All right, Amazon's always going to get them first. Amazon's going to get first bid. Amazon's going to get the largest amount because it's cheapest for us to have Amazon carry our shit and ship it to you. Because face it, all Amazon does is store stuff and ship stuff. They don't produce anything other than their TV stuff. But that's a completely separate route. All they do is store stuff that other people have sent them and then ship stuff once people order it. And storing that stuff doesn't cost a lot of money once it's there. It costs me money to get it there, but once it's there, I can keep it leaving on the shelf for months, years, until somebody orders it. Magic the Gathering doesn't go bad. Next up, you got your big box. You got Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. It is more cost effective for Hasbro to send their shit to Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, big box than it is to brick and mortar friendly local game store. Okay? Plus, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble make money off of other things. So Magic and D&D is going to be very little of their profit. They're going to have the stuff because there's incentives for them to have the stuff. But, Target's not going, this week's D&D sales are going to make or break us. Target's going, what's going to make or break us this week? Our television sales and our clothes sales. The things where we're making thousands and thousands of dollars every week as opposed to the $20 we made off of Magic cards. Then you got you. You want to open a friendly local game store. You want to open a game store right now. You got to compete with all those guys. Then you've got to be willing to invest the money and time to get enough stuff already on the shelves that people are going to come in. Because if I walk in and see nothing, I'm going to turn around and walk out and go to Target. So you got to have that Magic. You got to have that D&D. Now, the only way Hasbro will let you carry D&D stuff is if you carry Magic. It's a package deal. You have to carry Magic, and you have to support Magic in order to get the D&D stuff. And it's like 5-to-1. You've got to order a certain amount of Magic shit before they will even send you that one thing of D&D. Because Magic is 100% profit, and D&D isn't. And once you got that D&D stuff in, well, the occasional sale of a player's handbook is not going to be as profitable to you as the daily sales of Magic cards. But you got to keep the D&D role-playing crowd happy. So now you got to start thinking about the extensions. Because as anybody who's ever worked in retail, especially retail like video games, if I sell you a PlayStation, that's no profit. I don't make any money off of selling you a PlayStation if I'm Target. Okay? I worked in Target retail. I worked in Target electronics. I worked electronics retail. I worked big box. I worked specialty retail. I see no profit by selling you a PlayStation. I break even. But the games, the controllers, all the other stuff, that's all profit. So the same thing for a friendly local game store. Magic the Gathering, I don't see a profit until I'm selling more Magic the Gathering cards than I'm spending on Magic the Gathering cards. And eventually people are going to want singles. And I've got to have enough of the high-end singles to make it worth their while to come in my store, because otherwise they'll just get it online. And once I have that D&D stuff, that player's handbook, I'm not seeing any profit. That player's handbook is no profit. I will be lucky if I break even. But I need to carry it in order to make Hasbro, and I need to support the role players, because otherwise they will feel like the store has treated them badly, and they will start bad-mouthing the store. We know it happens. We've seen it happen, so we've got to keep the role players happy. But there's no profit. So now I got to start carrying the dice and the figures and the maps and the paints, and I've got to provide them space where they can play. Which means now I got to start thinking about feeding them, because gamers like to eat. So I know I got to carry the dice. I know I got to carry the figures. I know I got to carry the maps and the paints and the whatever things and the modules and the support stuff. I'm not making any money off of the player's handbook, but I'm going to make money off of the dice, especially the dice and the figures. And then I'm going to make money off the snacks. The snacks is all profit, because all I got to do is go to Costco or whatever and buy a big thing of soda, a big thing of chips, and a big thing of candy bars, and then charge them $1 a piece. Yeah. But then I got to think about things like, health and safety, insurance, what food I can and cannot carry. Am I going to allow outside food or not? Do I have a place to store this, all my stuff? And what happens if stuff is sitting on the shelf for a long period of time? Then I got to think about, how am I going to get that stuff to move? How am I going to get people in the door spending money so I'm making money? Because again, if you think you're going to make money selling friendly local game store and then still have time to sit around and play D&D with your friends, it's not going to happen. Best scenario, you break even, and then eventually, someday, you find a way to see a profit, because you provide something that the other stores isn't. You got to consider all these other things, but then you got to think about, what can I do that's different than the other stores? Because, it's 2022, which means there's already small stores established that have been selling gaming shit and Magic for a while. Plus, we've already got Target, we've got Walmart, we've got Barnes & Nobles, we've got Amazon, we've got Etsy, we've got Wish, we've got online stores, we've got eBay. There's so many things working against us. So we got to diversify. So how do I diversify? Well, for Seth, it was comic books, games, anime, action figures. And that was how Seth made his money. And then Seth made his money by providing table space and snacks and having the dice and the figures. And occasionally having that obscure game that only I ever bought. Seth also did comics, but we're going to not talk about comics. This is just about if you want to open a game store, a friendly local game store. Should you carry comics? That's a whole different ball game that I'm not going to get into. Because then you're dealing with Diamond and you're dealing with comic distributors, and that's a whole nother thing. But if you just want to run a game store, where is your profit? What is it can you do after that year is over that you now have stuff people want? Understanding, again, you're not making a profit yet. Your goal right now is to break even. Your goal is to make back what you spent opening the store, equipping the store, setting up the accounts with Hasbro, setting up the accounts with Diamond, setting up the accounts with whoever else, getting those figures, getting those dice, advertising. Oh, you got to advertise. What service now can I offer? And the service you're offering right now, once you've reached this point, isn't that you have magic cards or you have D&D stuff or you have dice. I can get that anywhere. You have to offer me customer service. You have to offer me the idea that I'm going to be treated a certain way. You have to offer me the idea that if I come into your store looking for X, you're going to have X, or you can get me X in a reasonable amount of time. And you have to have those tables. You have to have that real estate. That is where, because once I'm comfortable in your store and your store is neat and clean and well lit and your employees are treating me well and I'm being hit, kid in the candy store, there's all these bright things and there's magic cards and D&D and stuff, I'm going to want to sit down and I'm going to want to play with my friends. So now, what are you offering? What are you advertising? You're advertising an experience. You have to offer them something they can't get at Amazon. You have to offer something they can't get at Target. You have to offer them something they can't get from the other stores in town that are doing the exact same thing you're doing if there's another store in town. I mean, if you're lucky and you're the only one in town, then you just got to advertise and get people in for Magic and D&D and then offer them what they want. Now, a few years ago, I would have said, teach people how to play D&D classes and have like a D&D weekly thing. But, 5e's been around since 2014, so the chances of seeing another influx of a lot of people wanting to suddenly learn how to play D&D are slim. It's still there because there's still kids growing up right now learning about D&D, and there's still people who are coming back to the hobby. And there are still people who are like, oh, D&D is still around? I mean, just the other day, there was an article in the New York Times about how D&D has been more popular than ever. And I was like, you're doing this article now? Dude, we've been more popular than ever for the past 12 years. Tell us something we don't know. You got to offer an experience. That's how you might see that profit margin slowly slip out of the red and get to the point where you're keeping a roof over your head, meeting your bills, meeting your responsibilities, paying your staff. Oh yeah, you got to pay your staff, and you got to think about things like insurance and health and safety and OSHA and breaks and all the other things you have to think about if you're employing people in today's day and today. Safety, health, sexual harassment, all that other stuff. You got to think about, well, am I going to have kids in the store? Am I going to have food in the store? Am I going to sell food? Am I going to allow outside food? Do I have to get a food license? Some states, they don't care. Like here in California, I could open a friendly local game store. I could carry chips and soda, candy, maybe even coffee, and not get in trouble. But if I wanted to sell sandwiches, I'd have to get a food license. But, that could be different where you live. But food is another way to make profit because if they're sitting down, they're going to want a snack. You got to have those extensions. You got to have those things that are 100% profit for you and very little investment for you, like the dice, the figures. And you got to offer them what they can't get online. You got to offer them what they can't get at Walmart. You got to offer them an experience. You got to let them know you're here, and then you have a place for them to feel safe where they can play and sit down. But when they're sitting down, there's so many things you got to think about. Because now that they're sitting down, they might want to start, looking at shit. And you got to worry about it. Just think about any retail job you've ever had. Those are all the things you have to worry about if you're running a game store. Plus, you're dealing with a very niche audience. So you have to offer them something they can't get from Amazon. And even if that's just a table place to play, you got to let them know you have that table place. You have the stuff available. If you walk in and ask me, do I have X? I have X, or I can get it for you. But otherwise, if you're just like, I want to open a game store because it's going to make me rich and I'm going to be able to sit around and play D&D with my friends all day, and if there's like a figure I want, I can order it and bam. Yeah, no, that's not it. And if that's what you're thinking, don't open a game store. Don't go to work at a game store. If you think you're going to work at a game store because then you're going to just be able to sit around all day and play with your friends, no, it's a job and you have to do that job. It's just like working at Walmart or working at an insurance company or working at McDonald's. Your job is customer service, not I'm going to sit around and make my magic deck and play D&D. You got to get that in. You got to get those people in and you got to keep them in. You got to keep them in. The repeat customer base. You got to make them feel special. You got to make them feel that you're offering them something they can't get at Amazon. Because otherwise they're just going to order it from Amazon or go to Target, So, yeah. I'm going to say almost 20 minutes. That's enough. Blah, blah, blah. The RPG Mt Rushmore. And at the top of that is like at some point in time, we've all thought, I want to work at a game store or I want to run a game store. And it's work, it's time, it's effort, it's work. And it's going to cost you more than you're going to make for at least the first year. If you're expecting to get rich, it's not going to happen. You've got to invest so much to get the product and make the connections and set up the accounts and have that stuff on the shelf. So day one, when you open, if someone walks in and goes, do you have X? You have it, or you can get it in a short amount of time. Now, I could keep going on, but I feel like I'm just going to say the same things over and over and over again. So there you go. That is number one on the RPG Mt Rushmore. Number two would be, of course, should I make my own game? And if you want to keep this going on, I will do that one. If you never want to hear me talk about the RPG Mt Rushmore ever again, let me know. Remember, I'm only doing this because Rasputin said I don't do enough GM tips and how-to tips. So there you go. Should you open your own game store? I have been the OG GM. See ya.